Before The Matrix or Minority Report, one film imagined a future that was both hilarious and unsettlingly accurate. Demolition Man wasn't just Stallone versus Snipes, it was a warning wrapped in absurd comedy, predicting fast food monopolies, sanitized cities, and technology gone too far. Yet the real story of how this movie came together is even stranger. From scrapped subplots to real science experiments, here are 25 secrets hidden for decades behind one of the most prophetic action movies ever made. And some of these secrets are stranger than anything that made it to the screen. Number 1. The Taco Bell that became Pizza Hut. The famous franchise wars joke created an international puzzle that most viewers never noticed. In the United States, audiences saw Taco Bell as the last surviving restaurant after corporate domination. But when the film crossed oceans, something bizarre happened. Overseas viewers watched the exact same scenes with Pizza Hut logos instead. Warner Brothers didn't just swap logos in post-production. They actually reshot entire scenes with different signage, menus, and even dialogue to match the brand change. The reason was simple. Taco Bell had minimal international presence in the early 90s, so the joke would have fallen flat. This secret reveals how globalization literally rewrote the movie frame by frame. Today, both versions exist in different markets, making Demolition Man one of the few films with an official alternate reality built into its DNA. Number 2. The Mystery of the Three Seashells. The film's most confusing prop started as a half-serious joke that became cinema legend. Screenwriter Daniel Waters was desperately searching for futuristic bathroom ideas when inspiration struck during a phone call with a friend. He noticed decorative seashells on a shelf and thought, what if the future used something completely baffling instead of toilet paper? The genius was in never explaining how they actually worked. No character demonstrates their use, no instruction manual appears, and the mystery becomes part of the world building. John Spartan's confusion mirrors the audience's bewilderment, making us feel just as lost in this strange new society. Decades later, fan theories still rage online about the seashell's true function. Stallone himself has playfully teased knowing the secret in interviews, only to dodge the question with a grin. The prop cost almost nothing to make, yet it became one of the most memorable and discussed elements of the entire film. Number 3. Jackie Chan nearly played the villain. Before Wesley Snipes brought chaos to the screen, Stallone had a completely different vision for his opponent. The original plan was to cast martial arts superstar Jackie Chan as Simon Phoenix, creating an unprecedented clash of action titans. Chan was riding high on international success, and the studio believed his acrobatic fighting style would create unforgettable sequences. But Chan said no, and his reasoning was purely strategic. He had built his entire career on playing heroic, likable characters, especially in Asian markets where he was a cultural icon. Playing a violent criminal would risk alienating his core fan base and damage his carefully crafted image. Wesley Snipes transformed the role entirely, injecting manic humor and explosive charisma that Chan likely never would have delivered. The casting change accidentally gave us one of the 90s most memorable antagonists, proof that sometimes rejection leads to perfection. Number 4. Snipes was too fast for the camera. During fight choreography, the production team encountered an unexpected technical problem. Their villain was too skilled for their equipment. Wesley Snipes had trained extensively in martial arts for years, and his strikes moved with such speed and precision that standard film cameras struggled to capture them clearly. What looked impressive to the naked eye became a blur on playback. The solution was counterintuitive. They had to ask Snipes to slow down. Stunt coordinators worked with him to deliberately reduce his speed during takes, ensuring every punch, kick, and movement registered on film. Even at reduced velocity, his technique remained flawless. This behind-the-scenes challenge actually enhanced Simon Phoenix's presence rather than diminishing it. The raw athleticism still radiates through every action sequence, giving the character an aura of genuine danger. Snipes didn't just act like a threat, he moved like one, and the camera barely kept up. Number 5. Lori Petty was the original Huxley. Before Sandra Bullock charmed audiences with her naive optimism, another 90s action star briefly inhabited the role. Lori Petty, fresh off Point Break and Tank Girl, was originally cast as Lenina Huxley and began filming with high expectations. She brought her trademark edgy energy to the character, envisioning a tougher, more rebellious interpretation. But creative differences emerged almost immediately. After only 2 days of shooting, Petty and the production parted ways due to clashing visions of who Huxley should be. The director wanted wide-eyed enthusiasm and comedic innocence, while Petty pushed for a harder edge that didn't quite fit the satirical tone. Sandra Bullock stepped in and transformed Huxley into something entirely different, a genuinely sweet character whose earnestness became the heart of the film. Her chemistry with Stallone felt natural rather than forced, and her comedic timing elevated every scene. Number 6. Real futuristic cars from GM. Those glossy vehicles zooming through San Angeles weren't movie props built in a Hollywood workshop. They were actual General Motors concept cars worth millions. The GM Ultralight, a rare experimental prototype, inspired much of the film's sleek design language. These weren't just cosmetic shells either. They were functioning prototypes representing the automotive industry's vision of tomorrow. Production crews received strict warnings about damaging these priceless vehicles during action sequences. Every stunt had to be carefully choreographed to protect the irreplaceable concept cars, with insurance costs skyrocketing for each day they appeared on set. This secret reveals how real automotive innovation drove the movie's futuristic aesthetic. The partnership between Hollywood and Detroit created a visual authenticity that pure fiction couldn't match. Decades later, some design elements from those concept cars actually influenced real production vehicles, making Demolition Man a preview of automotive history. Number 7. The city of San Angeles was real. The spotless utopia of San Angeles wasn't created with special effects or elaborate sets. It was Orange County. Filming locations in Irvine, Westlake Village, and San Diego provided the eerie, too clean aesthetic that defined the sanitized future. These sterile business parks and planned communities became the perfect canvas for a society that had outlawed dirt, danger, and fun. The choice was brilliant because these locations already felt slightly artificial. Orange County's manicured lawns, identical architecture, and corporate blandness needed minimal dressing to transform into a dystopian wonderland. This approach saved the production enormous amounts of money while adding unexpected authenticity. The real locations gave actors something tangible to react against, making their performances feel grounded despite the absurd premise. Sometimes the best science fiction settings aren't built, they're just borrowed from the strangest corners of reality. Number 8. The director was a total newcomer. Marco Brambilla had never directed a feature film when Warner handed him a major studio blockbuster. The Italian-Canadian was an avant-garde video artist known for surreal installations and experimental work, not Hollywood action sequences. His background seemed completely mismatched for a Stallone vehicle, yet the studio took a massive leap of faith on his bold visual sensibilities. Brambilla's art world perspective explains the movie's bizarre mix of humor, chaos, and pop iconography. He approached action scenes like museum installations, layering meaning into every frame while maintaining blockbuster pacing. This gamble produced one of the decade's most visually distinctive action films. The movie's satirical edge and self-aware absurdity came directly from Brambilla's outsider status. Hollywood rarely trusts newcomers with big budgets anymore, making this secret a reminder of when studios occasionally embraced creative risk over safe predictability. Number 9. The Schwarzenegger Library came true. A throwaway line about the Arnold Schwarzenegger Presidential Library seemed like pure absurdist comedy in 1993. The joke mocked action star ego and American celebrity worship, imagining a future where an Austrian bodybuilder somehow became president. Audiences laughed at the impossibility, until reality started catching up. 10 years after the film's release, Arnold Schwarzenegger was elected governor of California, suddenly making the joke feel prophetic rather than ridiculous. While he never reached the presidency due to constitutional restrictions, his political rise gave the gag an eerie second life. This single line transformed from satire into prediction, showcasing how Demolition Man accidentally documented cultural shifts before they happened. The joke works on multiple levels now. Funny when written, prescient in hindsight, and oddly melancholic about celebrity politics. Few movie gags age this well or this strangely. Number 10. The Lost Daughter of John Spartan. Deleted scenes revealed an emotional subplot that would have changed the entire story. John Spartan had an adult daughter living among the underground rebels, creating a personal stake beyond simple justice. The storyline explored how decades in cryogenic freeze cost him the chance to watch her grow up, adding genuine tragedy beneath the action spectacle. The subplot was cut for pacing, though cryptic hints remain in the final film's dialogue. Some fans developed theories that Lenina Huxley might actually be the daughter in disguise, pointing to subtle moments of connection between the characters. Stallone has firmly denied this interpretation in interviews, but the speculation refuses to die. This lost arc would have added depth to Spartan's character beyond the typical action hero template. The decision to remove it kept the film's momentum, but sacrificed emotional complexity. Film editors face these brutal choices constantly. Sometimes the best scenes get cut because they slow down the ride. Number 11, the hairstyle that shocked the NBA. Wesley Snipes' platinum blonde haircut became one of the most striking visual elements in the entire film. The bold choice made Simon Phoenix instantly memorable, creating a villain who looked as dangerous as he acted. But the hairstyle's influence extended far beyond the movie screen, sparking an unexpected cultural phenomenon that nobody anticipated. Within months of the film's release, NBA star Dennis Rodman dyed his hair the same shocking platinum color. The basketball player had already built a reputation for rebellious behavior, but this marked the beginning of his legendary hair transformations. This accidentally launched a decades-long trend of expressive hairstyles in professional sports. Athletes across multiple leagues began experimenting with bold colors and styles, normalizing self-expression in ways that seemed impossible before. A movie villain's aesthetic choice became a catalyst for cultural change, proving that fiction's boldest statements inspire reality's biggest rebels. Number 12. Names with a secret meaning. The character names weren't randomly chosen. They're carefully constructed literary references. Lenina Huxley pays direct homage to Aldous Huxley's dystopian novel, Brave New World, which explored themes of control, conformity, and sanitized society. The name Lenina comes from a character in that novel who represents blind acceptance of authority. John Spartan represents the opposite, raw rebellion and ancient warrior culture. Spartans were famous for rejecting comfort and embracing harsh discipline, perfectly mirroring the character's old-school toughness. Together, the names personify the movie's central conflict between chaos and control, freedom and safety. This subtle philosophy adds depth for viewers who catch the references while remaining invisible to casual audiences. The screenwriter embedded intellectual DNA into a blockbuster action film, proving that summer movies could operate on multiple levels. Number 13. How a straight action film became satire. The original script was a conventional action thriller without humor or social commentary. Studio executives envisioned another straightforward Stallone vehicle: explosions, one-liners, and uncomplicated heroics. Then screenwriter Daniel Waters got his hands on the material and completely transformed its identity. Waters infused sharp satire, cultural critique, and absurdist humor into every scene. He turned the verbal morality statute into a running gag, made commercialism grotesque, and weaponized political correctness for laughs. His rewrites changed not just dialogue, but the entire tone, creating a tongue-in-cheek dystopia that mocked both authoritarianism and action movie cliches simultaneously. This transformation elevated Demolition Man from forgettable to unforgettable. The film became cultural commentary disguised as entertainment, critiquing sanitized society while delivering the thrills audiences expected. Waters proved that blockbusters could be smart without being pretentious, a balance Hollywood rarely achieves. Number 14. Stallone's double feature year. 1993 nearly broke Sylvester Stallone physically and professionally. He shot Cliffhanger and Demolition Man back-to-back with almost no break between productions, maintaining the same haircut and physique for both roles. The grueling schedule meant months of constant stunt work, action choreography, and promotional obligations without rest. This exhausting year represented a crucial career pivot for the actor. After several box office disappointments in the late 80s, Stallone needed hits to prove he still commanded audience attention. Both films succeeded commercially, cementing his mid-90s comeback and proving action stars could reinvent themselves. The dual productions showcased his range. Cliffhanger offered pure survival thriller intensity, while Demolition Man demanded comedic timing and self-aware performance. Few actors could anchor two major blockbusters in a single year while approaching 50 years old. Number 15. The foam crash that wasn't fiction. When John Spartan's vehicle fills with protective foam after a collision, it looks like pure science fiction invention. The scene imagines future safety technology that instantly cushions passengers during accidents, preventing injuries through rapid chemical reaction. But this futuristic concept was actually rooted in legitimate scientific research happening during production. Engineers in the early 90s were genuinely experimenting with rapid expanding polymer foams for vehicle safety applications. The idea was to create materials that could deploy faster than airbags while providing full-body protection. This connection between Hollywood imagination and real scientific ambition shows how the film straddled fantasy and possibility. Demolition Man took a genuine concept and extrapolated it to its logical extreme, making science fiction feel grounded in fact. Number 16. The real cryo-prison tech. The idea of freezing prisoners in suspended animation seemed like far-fetched science fiction, yet it tapped into legitimate scientific research. Cryonics experiments were already underway in the early 90s, with scientists exploring ways to preserve human tissue and potentially pause biological processes. The film took these real concepts and pushed them into the realm of criminal justice. The production team used practical effects to create believable cryo-prison scenes. Real liquid carbon dioxide generated authentic frost and vapor clouds on camera, giving the frozen inmates a tangible presence rather than relying on cheap visual tricks. This blend of fact and fiction connected Hollywood imagination with genuine scientific ambition. While we're still decades away from safely freezing and reviving humans, the underlying research continues today in medical preservation and space travel applications. Demolition Man asked a provocative question: if we could pause criminals' lives, should we? Long before the technology existed. Number 17. The DC Comics crossover. Few fans know that Demolition Man received an official comic book expansion that went far beyond the film. DC Comics published a 4-issue miniseries that explored the underground rebels, added new action sequences, and revealed more about San Angeles dystopian society. The comics gave characters like Edgar Friendly more backstory and depth than the movie allowed. The artwork captured the film's aesthetic, while adding visual flourishes impossible on a movie budget. Fight scenes stretched across double-page spreads, and the comics explored locations mentioned in dialogue but never shown on screen. This crossover represents a forgotten era, when major films routinely received comic adaptations that enhanced rather than just retold the story. The miniseries gave devoted fans new content to explore, while the movie still dominated theaters. Today, these issues remain buried treasures for the few who remember when Demolition Man briefly joined the DC universe. Number 18. The video games nobody agreed on. Two wildly different games hit stores in the mid-90s, creating confusion among players. Acclaim developed one version for Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo, featuring side-scrolling action with platforming elements. Virgin Interactive created an entirely separate game for the 3DO console, offering clunky first-person shooting mechanics and different level designs. Neither version captured the film's satirical humor particularly well. The Acclaim game focused on repetitive combat through generic corridors, while the 3DO version struggled with primitive controls and awkward camera angles. This split release showcased how chaotic video game licensing could be in the 90s. Different publishers working independently created fragmented experiences that shared only a name. The games reflected the movie's mix of humor and violence awkwardly, becoming footnotes in gaming history rather than beloved adaptations. Number 19. The movie's hidden product placements. Taco Bell wasn't the only brand sponsoring the future of San Angeles. Sharp, Panasonic, and even Atari logos appear throughout the film, subtly embedded in set designs and background details. These corporate partnerships helped finance production while adding visual texture to the sterile cityscape. The irony is delicious. A movie mocking consumer culture and corporate dominance was itself funded by corporate sponsorships. Every brand placement undermines the satire while simultaneously proving its point. The film criticizes commercialism using commercialism's money, creating a meta-commentary that few viewers consciously notice. This contradiction reveals Hollywood's pragmatic relationship with the messages it sells. Demolition Man could afford to mock corporations because corporations paid for the privilege. The product placements don't ruin the satire, they accidentally deepen it, showing how capitalism absorbs even its own critics. Number 20. The Van Damme Seagull version. Before Sylvester Stallone's involvement, the studio pursued a radically different casting vision. Executives imagined Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal as dueling action stars, one representing good, the other evil. The concept promised explosive martial arts sequences and maximum box office appeal from two rising stars. But negotiations collapsed immediately because neither actor wanted to play the villain. Van Damme worried about tarnishing his heroic screen image, while Seagal insisted his characters never lose fights or display weakness. The egos clashed so dramatically that the project nearly died before finding its stars. This failure turned into accidental fortune when Stallone stepped in with Wesley Snipes. The final pairing brought unexpected chemistry. Stallone's weary cynicism against Snipes' manic energy created dynamics that Van Damme and Seagal could never have delivered. Sometimes the casting that almost happens is more interesting than what actually does. Number 21. Snipes' improvised madness. Wesley Snipes refused to stick to the script, ad-libbing many of Simon Phoenix's most chaotic and memorable lines. His unpredictability kept the entire crew guessing about what would happen in each take, forcing everyone to stay alert and reactive. Director Marco Brambilla encouraged this spontaneity, recognizing that Snipes' instincts were sharpening the character's manic energy. The improvisation extended beyond dialogue into physical comedy and facial expressions. Snipes would throw in unexpected gestures, sudden laughs, or bizarre line deliveries that caught his fellow actors off guard. This creative freedom gave the film its anarchic spark that scripted villainy rarely achieves. Simon Phoenix feels genuinely dangerous, partly because he's genuinely unpredictable. Even the actors didn't know what Snipes would do next. The result is a performance that crackles with life, proving that sometimes the best direction is knowing when to get out of the way. Number 22. The plagiarism controversy. Hungarian author István Németh claimed Demolition Man borrowed heavily from his 1986 novel Fight of the Dead. His book also featured criminals frozen in time who awaken in a pacifist future society, creating undeniable plot similarities. The story spread across European media, with Németh publicly accusing the studio of intellectual theft. Yet, he never filed an official lawsuit, and the controversy quietly faded from international attention. Hollywood disputed the claims, noting that frozen criminal concepts had appeared in various science fiction works for decades. This debate raises fascinating questions about originality in genre fiction. Dystopian futures, cryogenic suspension, and culture clash comedy are common elements that many writers explore independently. Whether Demolition Man genuinely borrowed ideas or simply arrived at similar conclusions remains an unresolved mystery that courts never examined. Number 23. The costumes that tell a story. Costume designer Bob Ringwood, known for Batman and Dune, crafted uniforms that functioned as social commentary. He deliberately designed the San Angeles police outfits to look infantilized. Soft pastel blues, rounded shapes, and no sharp edges anywhere. This wasn't aesthetic preference, but philosophical statement. These were people so obsessed with safety they had regressed into childlike helplessness. The rebels wore the opposite, mismatched rags, torn fabrics, and clashing colors that screamed freedom and chaos. Their costumes represented individuality reclaimed through poverty and resistance. Ringwood understood that clothing shapes how audiences perceive power and vulnerability. The visual language of fabric, color, and cut told the movie's central story without a single word of dialogue. Few viewers consciously analyze costume choices, yet everyone absorbs their meaning subconsciously. This is how great design works, invisible yet essential. Number 24. The R-rated toy line. Mattel released Demolition Man action figures despite the film's R rating, creating a bizarre disconnect between violent source material and family-friendly toy aisles. The figures even reused old He-Man molds with minimal modifications, complete with bright neon weapons that had nothing to do with the movie. Kids could buy Simon Phoenix with a purple laser cannon that never appeared on screen. The packaging featured softened imagery and avoided any reference to the film's adult content. Parents purchasing toys likely had no idea they were buying merchandise from a movie filled with violence and profanity. Collectors now seek these figures for their strange mashup of contradictions. They represent a forgotten era when studios merchandised everything regardless of appropriateness. The toys are artifacts of marketing madness, proof that someone thought children desperately needed action figures from a dystopian satire about frozen criminals. Number 25. Stallone's legal battle years later. Decades after Demolition Man became a cult classic, Sylvester Stallone sued Warner for unpaid profits. He claimed the studio used creative accounting to minimize his back-end participation payments, allegedly hiding millions in revenue through financial manipulation. The lawsuit exposed Hollywood's notoriously murky accounting practices, where even successful films somehow lose money on paper. The case dragged through courts quietly, avoiding the public spectacle of similar Hollywood disputes. In 2019, both parties reached a confidential settlement, with terms never disclosed to the public. This final secret reveals Hollywood's messy reality, where even frozen cops can't escape studio contracts. Success doesn't guarantee fair payment, and actors must vigilantly protect their earnings from creative bookkeeping. It's a fitting conclusion to a movie that never stopped fighting authority. Apparently, neither did its star. 30 years later, Demolition Man looks less like parody and more like a mirror. It mocked control, censorship, and corporate dominance, and somehow predicted them all. The film imagined a sanitized future where offense is illegal and society trades freedom for safety. Today, those themes feel less absurd and more like daily headlines. Its mix of satire and sincerity keeps it frozen in time, thawed out by each new generation that realizes how right it was. The three seashells still confuse us, and Simon Phoenix still steals every scene. But beneath the explosions lives a film that understood where culture was heading before we got there. If you enjoyed uncovering the secrets of Demolition Man, hit like and subscribe for more hidden Hollywood stories. Tell us in the comments, what do you think the three seashells really do? We love hearing your thoughts and theories about these classic films. See you in the next video.